Today you are going to learn my 14 most essential mixing tips. I'm Will from EDM Tips, and these tips have helped me mix and master music that has hit the top spot in several download charts, has worked on Grammy shortlisted music, and even music that has hit the top 51 in the global iTunes charts out of all music, all genres, all of that. So I know a thing or two about mixing. Download my free mixing guide below this video, which has got all of these tips and a whole lot more. Tip number 1, get the sounds right first. So mixing really starts from the very beginning of the process, and there's a reason why if you are working in a band that there's drum kit, there's a vocalist, and there's a guitarist, and there might be some keyboards. It's because these things tend to work well and complement each other frequency wise. So if you're making electronic dance music, the best way to get a good mix is to start out with sounds that work really well together. Now for more tips on that, I will make another video, but that's the first tip. The second tip is check your mix in mono often. So what I do is I have a plugin on my master chain and a keyboard shortcut, and that plugin in Ableton Live is just a utility, and it switches the whole mix from stereo to mono. And I do this every few seconds or every couple of minutes just to make sure that there are no phasing issues and my mix sounds really good in mono as well as stereo. And it's really important because sometimes you can have a great plugin with loads of effects on it, a great synth preset, but it doesn't sound that good in mono, so always check in mono. Number 3 is check your gain staging. Again, with plugins, it's very easy for the level to go up, and before you know it, you're clipping somewhere in your signal path. So using trim plugins or gain plugins just to make sure that you're never actually clipping at any point in your signal path is a great way to get a clean mix. Number 4, check that mix at low levels and at high levels, because our ears tend to let us think that a mix sounds better if it's pumped up really loud, but it can be confusing. So if you turn it down low as well, make sure that all the most important elements can still be heard, and then try it at slightly louder levels as well, but of course be careful not to smash your ears, because if you mix at really high levels for a prolonged period of time, you're going to give yourself hearing damage. Number 5, mix fast and take breaks. If you get your mix session all set up, maybe the night before, so all of your stems are loaded in, and then you can just go in with fresh ears, just work quickly, then you are going to have the most objective approach. If you start mixing for 2, 3, 4 hours, then you lose objectivity and it's very hard to kind of see. If your mix is taking a long time, then at least take breaks. So walk away for an hour or two, come back with fresh ears and have another go at it. Number 6 is A/B test every move you make. So every plugin you put on the chain, make sure that you bypass it and then turn it on again, just to make sure that you are doing it for a reason and that it's actually adding to the quality of your mix and not detracting from it. So don't just slap loads of plugins in without testing them against turning them off and turning them on. Number 7 is have an intention. Now this is kind of similar to number 6 in some ways, but if you put plugins on just for the hell of it, then you're going to end up with a weird, washy, muddy, pumpy sound. So it's a good idea to develop the ability to hear what kind of plugin you want to put on. So if there's a lack of clarity in the top end, you might decide to put an additive EQ on, or you might decide to dip some frequencies in another element in your track. And if it's not kind of loud enough and in your face, you might add some compression to tame some of those transients. But the idea is basically have a reason for putting on each plugin. Number 8 is check your mix on different systems. So it's very easy to make it sound, well, it's not very easy, but you might make it sound really good on your studio monitors or your headphones, but test it on your iPhone speakers, test it in your car, test it on your mum's crappy stereo, whatever it is. If you can test it on 3 or 4 systems that you know, and you know how music should sound on them, then it's going to help you do a much better mix overall. So it might sound really good with your big bassy subwoofer, but might lose all bass frequencies or all bass energy when you listen to it on your iPhone. So then you know you have to go back to the mix and do some work on it. Number 9 is use reference tracks. This is huge. So again, it's very easy to lose objectivity in a mix. So if you've got a reference track in a genre that's very similar to what you're mixing in, then you can A/B test between your mix and the kind of reference track as well, and you can hear, okay, well, what frequencies have they got that I'm lacking, and you can use spectrum analyzers on their track and your track, and you can reference to help you guide you basically. So use reference tracks all the time. I don't know any producers that don't. Number 10 is loop the loudest section of the track with the most stuff going on, so that would usually be the last drop or the last chorus, and start your mix there because there's the most going on. So if you can get that sounding good, the rest of it's going to be much easier. Number 11 is top-down mixing, and this is where you mix the most important elements first. So it might be the kick, the snare and the vocals, or the kick, the bass line, the vocals, and then bring in all the other elements around it once you've got those three sitting really well together. And that is what I call top-down mixing. Number 12 is get your levels balanced first, because EQ and compression and reverb and all that good stuff is great, but about 70 to 80% of your mix is just getting those levels between the different elements balanced correctly. So if you can at least get a good measure of that, and you can use the pink noise technique, so hit that link wherever it is for that, and that's going to help you get a good kind of rough balance of levels first before you start using all the different plugins. Number 13 is use gain automation on a plugin, not your channel faders. So if you've got an element that you want louder in the chorus, for instance, you might have the chorus vocals 2 dB louder than the verse vocals. If you automate a gain plugin rather than your channel fader, then if you need to adjust the global level of the vocals a bit later on, you can still slide that channel fader up and down. Whereas if you've automated it, then you have to go in and edit all the automation nodes, and trust me, ain't nobody got time for that. And number 14, last but not least, download my free mixing guide below this video for these tips and a whole lot more that you can just refer to. It's really simple. You can print it up, stick it on like I stick my bits of paper next to my screen, and that will just help remind you of these tips that we've gone through today and a few more to help you get the very best mixes possible. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's a bit of a break from the norm in terms of format for me, but give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and until next time, cheers and happy producing.